You know, Charles, just when we reach a moment where I think we can't possibly have a better guest, we do. We're joined today by U.S. Senator Marsha Blackburn. Senator Blackburn, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, I'm delighted to join you. Thank you so much for having me on.
Well, thank you. I've got to tell you, Senator, I am the son of a strong woman. I married a strong woman. I have a strong daughter. And so it was just such a treat to read your book, which is crisp, informative. I'd love you to start, if you could, talking about the book. Inform our viewership a little bit what it was like where you grew up in Laurel, Mississippi, because that seemed to be a very special place.
Well, let me talk first about the book, and then I'll talk a little bit about growing up and my family. But yes, I decided to write the book, The Mind of a Conservative Woman, because I would talk to women who would say, you know what, I feel like I can't say anything to family, friends, coworkers. I'm a conservative. And conservatives are treated so terribly in the media. And they didn't want to get hit with cancel culture, and they didn't know how to talk about conservatism. Indeed, if you relied on what you heard from the mainstream media about conservatives, you would think, well, it's a bunch of old gray-headed white guys, and they're huddled in their office hoarding their life savings, and they don't want to do good for anybody. And we know that is just not true. So I thought, well, we need to talk about what conservatism is. So that's why I go into the history of conservatism all the way back to Jerusalem and the 12 tribes of Israel, and talk about federalism and those principles and where we get them. Then we talk about Athens and London and Philadelphia, and come to modern day conservatism through the writings of de Tocqueville and Burke and Russell Kirk and William F. Buckley. And then look at how this applies to our lives today. Now, another reason for writing the book was talking to women who would say, I'm not a Democrat, I'm not a Republican, I am somebody who is strictly in the middle. And I would say, tell me what your filter is when you look at issues and candidates. Talk about that to me. And generally, they would say, well, I want somebody that abides by the Constitution, that believes in the rule of law because we're a nation of laws. I want fairness in the system. I want equality and justice for everybody. I want opportunity for my children and my grandchildren. I want them to be able to dream big dreams. So what they were giving me was basically a conservative value set. So many times what I found was women need that landing spot and understanding who conservatives are, what conservatives believe, and then being able to see how that fits with their life helps them to have those discussions with friends and family, helps them to talk with their coworkers. It also helps them to tell their children, this is what we believe and who we are. So all of that weighed into writing the book. Now, I'm one of those individuals that came to conservatism through how I was reared and through my family. And they were very involved in the community, very typical family, that close-knit, lots of relatives and cousins always running around. And my parents would say, give back more than you take, and always leave things in better shape than you found it. That didn't matter if it was cleaning up around where we sat at church in the pew on Sunday, or if it was seeing trash that had been dropped by the side of the road and cleaning that up so we didn't have to look at it every day. So those were kind of the elements that were woven into my life. And then as I went to college at Mississippi State University, I had the opportunity to talk about what I believed and debate friends who were liberal. And notice I said friends, because I really believe that robust, respectful, bipartisan debate is something that has served our nation so incredibly well.
I couldn't agree more. One of the things that you talk about in your book, I think it's item 8 out of 10 points, has to do with community service. And of course, you mentioned de Tocqueville and de Tocqueville noticing in early America how important community service was and how vibrant it was. One of the biggest sectors of the American economy that is actually not regulated is the not-for-profit sector. And I want to thank you in 2015 and 16 when my New York people, Congress and Senate, had no interest in going after the Clinton Foundation for the massive fraud that it is. You and your staff jumped right in. I didn't know you or your staff, and you did enormously impactful work, which I think actually may have had an impact on the 2015-16 election process. So thank you.
Well, thank you. We were happy to do that work. We felt like that it was important to do. And you know what? Sometimes you'll hear elections have consequences. Well, one of those is who serves as chairman of committees. And we were doing committee work at the Energy and Commerce Committee and overseeing the Federal Trade Commission's oversight of nonprofits. And in preparing for that hearing, we had some nonprofits in Tennessee that the FTC had shut down because they were not contributing enough of what they took in to the work of the charity. It was being eaten up by expenses and salaries. And so I said, well, let's pull some benchmarks. So that we did. We went in and we pulled wounded warriors in different charities. Among them, we pulled the Clinton Foundation, and lo and behold, did we ever find here was a charity that could not be rated by Charity Navigator because of their quote unquote unusual business model. They were giving just a fraction, like 13% of what they brought in to the work of the foundation. So we continued to push on this to find answers as to what was happening. As you remember, the Clinton Foundation had to go back and reposition their filing with the IRS. They had never advanced it further than the Clinton Presidential Museum. It was not set up to do the global initiative to take those monies that wasn't being properly designated within the IRS rules. So it led to a litany of actions, and indeed it was a good teamwork, a good committee work, and my staff did an incredible job on that.
Well, thank you so much for that. And what's happened, it's interesting, since those days, 4 years ago in 2016, now when our New York State Attorney General goes after Steve Bannon and Donald Trump and other foundations, what immediately happens on Twitter is the Clinton Foundation starts trending. The Twitterverse looks at that and says, how come nothing's happening with the Clinton Foundation? So let's hope in time that they do get brought to justice. On your book, what advice would you have for somebody, let's say in high school, going back to high school, a young lady, thinking about getting into politics as a conservative in 2020? What advice would you give that young person?
I would tell them to be certain that they had a well-rounded foundation, that they don't focus just on politics, that they focus on real life. Because what women want to see and what voters want to see is somebody who can identify with them. Elections, and this would be a great lesson for politicians to learn, elections are not about the politicians. They're about the voters. And people want to see elected representatives who can identify with them and what they're dealing with, the issues of life they're dealing with every single day.
And I'm sure you've probably met Kim Klacik, the candidate from Baltimore, the attractive African-American woman who is a powerhouse. Her advertisements are amazing. Her ideas, not just for Baltimore, but for the inner cities across this country, are so wonderful. I'm really excited the fact that she's emulating you and others who came before her and jumping into the fray.
I tell you, I have not met her, but what an impressive young woman. And I have to tell you, I have so much respect for the way she is standing up and pushing back against the media and pushing against the stereotypes that they have of conservatives. You know, the left will tell you they just don't have any use for a female who says she's a conservative. And I have certainly put up with that all of my life. And you look at women who are taking a stand and they're saying, no, government, you have failed our communities. And I have great respect for that. Indeed, the book I wrote, The Mind of a Conservative Woman, I dedicated it to the conservative women with whom I've had the opportunity to serve. And I did that because these are women that are working so hard to get their ideas across, to make this country and their communities a better place. And every day they are fighting the mainstream press, who just feels as if these women should not be recognized, they shouldn't be called capable. They push back on them every chance that they get.
And one of the many excellent points you make in your book is the concern you have about the $22 trillion federal debt and the trajectory of the budget deficit going forward from this point now where we're trying to recover. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, the social welfare expenditures in this country were minute. Now they're gigantic. You can't say that we're being miserly trying to address society's ills. In fact, we're throwing way too much money at them. And so it's great that you draw attention to that in your book, that you're working across the aisle for solutions. You say you're a happy warrior, and I can see that. I think our audience can see that. Are you optimistic sitting here today that we might retain control of the Senate and even possibly, I hope, take back the House and reelect Donald Trump? Is that what your internal polls tell you?
Yes, I think every day that President Trump's prospects improve. And one of the reasons is safety and security, law and order, and that the way that resonates with women. Women are buying handguns, or I should say a larger percentage of handgun sales are being made to women now than anyone else. And it is women more than men that are signing up to take handgun classes and gun safety classes and personal defense classes. And why are they doing this? Because they live in areas, there are big blue cities, or there are Democratic mayors that are not going to stop some of this civil unrest and rioting and looting and vandalism and anarchy. And women want to be able to protect themselves. And indeed, you talk about Kim Klacik and her campaign talking about Baltimore. What they're doing is pointing out the failings of big government. So you're going to see women step up and talk about this more. And I think it's why the president's numbers are improving with women. It's also why the prospects for holding the Senate look better. And even some of these races that were suburban areas where you had Democrat women come in and they defeated Republicans. What you're seeing this time around is people are saying, no, you told me you were going to go there and you were going to be bipartisan. You've gone there, you're voting with the squad 90% of the time. We didn't send you there to do that. So you're going to see some of those seats flip.
That'd be great. We're friendly with Laura Loomer, who's running in the district representing the president. And she's a real firebrand. We'll see if she's able to get it across the line. We, of course, Jason and I are here in the center of Manhattanistan, which is falling down as we speak. I've lived here a long time, and I've never seen the city in worse shape than it is under our mayor and governor. So thank you for being a strong, powerful, confident, conservative person. And thank you for everything you've done so far and what you may do in the future. Is there one set of parting thoughts you might want to leave to our viewers?
I would encourage your viewers to continue to follow us. They'll find me on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and Parler at Marsha Says, MARSHASAYS, at Marsha Says. And we're going to continue this conversation of why we need the voice of conservative women in the public policy debates that we are having today. And we hope that they will be right there with us and continue this conversation, that they will raise their hand and they will volunteer and step up, run for office. And of course, I hope that every conservative woman gets not only a book for themselves, but a book for a woman that they want to inspire. And the book is available at all major booksellers. And of course, it is available online.
Well, thanks again, Senator. You're so kind to give us this much of your time. I wish you all the best, and we'll be back in touch soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye-bye now.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Well, Charles, there we go. U.S. Senator. Pretty fancy. I can't believe this is a great show.
Somebody should invent this show.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Really impressive. And I'm so pleased that Senator Blackburn took the time to speak with us.
Well, just if I can color out a little bit more, she was pressed for time, but just if I can discuss what actually happened, or some of what actually happened in 15 and 16. When I first wrote the article for Breitbart on March 16th, 2015, saying with so many red flags, why isn't the IRS auditing the Clinton Foundation? Nobody was all that interested in getting to the bottom of the problem. There's a great guy called Thomas Lifson at the American Thinker, and he picked up on a report that I issued April 20th, 2015. And I can't remember exactly when, but the staff, I tried to get my Congressman Gerald Nadler, away from the refrigerator, but that was impossible. And, Chuck Schumer, I have a 203 area code on my cell phone, and nobody in his office would answer a phone from outside 212. Right. So
they probably wouldn't answer it from within 212.
Exactly. Either. So, out of the blue, I get this contact from Marsha Blackburn. The phone says 202, whatever, House of Representatives. I'm thinking, who could this be? And it was one of Marsha's very senior people who contacted me. Is this Charles Ortel? Yes. And we had a nice chat. And what started as a telephone chat, I remember I was standing in front of the Jefferson Market Library on 9th Street or whatever that is, on 9th or 10th Street.
6th Avenue.
6th Avenue. It used to be a prison, actually.
It's like 11th or 12th. Something
it's actually, it's whatever. It's between 9th and 10th. But
close.
And there the phone rings, and I'm outside in the summer, and we have a conversation. And what started with just a conversation ended up with multiple visits. Of course, I paid for my own travel and whatever, but multiple visits to Washington, D.C.
I thought you hate D.C.
I do hate it, but I made an exception for this fantastic person who was then in the House of Representatives. Wouldn't you know, she unlike the others who were like talking, she put together a letter demanding action. She's absolutely right. She focused in May, forget what it was exactly. It might have been May of 2015, but a series of charities that were only 200 million in size were written up in Fortune and in CNN actually as well on their website for having basically raised a bunch of money for cancer and spent it on high living. Does that sound very familiar at all? And so
that's just terrible. I mean, everybody knows somebody at this point who has died of cancer, and to think that, right?
My first
I
wife.
mean, almost everybody has somebody in their family or a close friend, and then someone's going to go and grift off of that.
They're doing it right now as we speak. So we had, not only did we have extensive discussions and meetings, but her top person, who's a former prosecutor, and I won't reveal his name, but he's a fantastic individual. He rolled up his sleeves, and this person was working his regular job, and then on the side put together this very lengthy document that was circulated to the press, and incredibly insightful, deep research, all on his own time with other people on Marsha's staff. It got a fair amount of publicity. It was attacked by Media Matters. This was it explored the relationship between Indian generic drug companies and the Clinton Foundation, and the way they were pumping out, the allegation was back then, adulterated, in fact, just harmful medicines, particularly targeting the parts of the world where nobody would check. They did it in the US and Europe, but 100% of the medicines sent to their own country, India, and to across Africa were absolutely just rubbish, and in fact probably harmful. So she and he did a tremendous amount of work there. Marsha, I believe, is very much, this is outrageous. He praised Ranbaxy, Clinton did, I think, well after, just as the settlement against Ranbaxy, 1 month before the settlement was announced, Bill praised Ranbaxy.
I can't believe I've never seen this photo before.
We're
Something tells me it's going to wind up in some pictures.
Yeah. I'll take some chicken wings.
Oh.
But anyway, so she really is tireless. It is not an easy thing to be a senator, maintaining your offices in Tennessee and then in Washington, D.C., and tending to the needs of her statewide constituents, and beyond that, picking on the issues that she has picked. I know that people seriously misunderestimate Marsha Blackburn, as people said.
George Bush especially.
Yeah. No, but she's tireless, effective, gotten a lot of stuff across the line. And if the Clinton Foundation ultimately is brought to justice the way I hope it will be, we'll have this person and her staff to thank, because no one else in Washington, D.C. in government did anything. And really where we are now, people from the outside have had to spend the last 4 years since the election coming up with novel ways to prod regulators, and I won't say exactly how, because it's going to happen soon, I hope, regulators, many different places, to pounce on the Clinton Foundation frauds that started actually before, I believe, October 23rd, 1997, and involved perhaps one of the largest political conspiracies ever imagined.
I mean, I say it's the most sophisticated organized crime organization in the history of humankind.
Right.
It's infiltrated the U.S. government. It's got a finance scheme, and everybody's paid off to prevent them from getting arrested. I didn't get to read the entire book. I sort of just started it. But even from the very beginning, you can get a sense of the type of woman that she is. Her whole entire life, she just prioritizes morality and being nice to other people and thoughtful. The simplest kind of ideas, but so few people actually make an honest effort to engage in behaving that way.
Right.
And if everybody did, all these people who think it's okay to just leave your dog poop on the street or walk around without a leash or smoke a cigarette on the subway, because none of these rules apply to me. That is the basis of, the type of personality that would grift from cancer. The person that would do those little things when they get to a position of power would really abuse it.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting, the reason I asked her the question about her hometown, which she discusses in the book, I had never heard of Laurel, Mississippi, but apparently it is a portion of Mississippi that fought against the Confederates over slavery during the War of Northern Aggression, or as we like to say, the Civil War. And so I was hoping she might talk about that, but now you can read about it in her book. I have deep roots in this country, as many people do, and some of my deep roots involve people who went out west early on. One of the earliest letters or examples of an ancestor's signature that I have is he was an early settler in Colorado, and actually his wife's family lived across the street from Abraham Lincoln, and he also lived in Springfield, Illinois. So they went out to Colorado in 1861, and this is a letter to Abraham Lincoln from my ancestor, signed by other co-signers, saying, we really need a judge out here. We need law and order out here. So when you're talking about a bunch of people, going into, the wilderness, there are persuasive arguments why government intervention is needed to build roads and reservoirs and protect you and all this kind of stuff. But when you're sitting here in 2020, his name's James Gormley. It may or may not come up on Google.
Let's just say.
Anyway, James. It's a petition technically, but anyway, people will find it. We needn't digress at this moment.
Yeah,
it's okay. So in 2020, when you're sitting here and the government's spending $6.5–7 trillion a year, and we're trying to get a third or fourth or whatever it is stimulus across the line, and we want to give $500 billion, and Nancy wants $2.3 trillion or whatever it is. Kind of tough to argue that there's a stinginess problem in government. We don't have a stinginess problem. We have a skankiness problem. In the case of Nancy Pelosi, I mean, witness most recently this trip to the hairdresser in San Francisco to get her hair.
Oh my God, I
colored.
didn't see that.
It's all big, all over the news. So Trump's giving her crap justifiably about it. I mean, here these salons are all closed in San Francisco, so she is photographed walking through the salon without a mask in a place that's closed, and she's claiming she didn't think it was a problem. And this is the problem we have with these big government types. We don't need another program. We don't need another $1 trillion spent on many things. What we need is an audit, a real audit of where the money has gone, who's stealing that money. How come so many politicians, for example, in Kim Klasik's district, Elijah Cummings spent a long time as a there you go.
So that's her?
That's the Wicked Witch of the West.
Well, it doesn't look like she has any hair there.
Yeah, it's just slicked back.
Oh, I didn't think it was a problem. She looked. Last time I saw her, she looked like she was suffering from delirium tremens and needed a drink.
Yeah, that's how she rolls, I guess. But Elijah Cummings, the person whose seat Kim Klacik may get, amassed a fortune as a congressman with no business experience. I mean, please explain how you do that. This Maxine Waters lives in a multi-million-dollar house in California, probably has a nice house in Washington, D.C. You have a whole bunch of people who've been looting, frankly, in the name of the need for more government, and nobody's looking at the speedometer, if that's the right phrase, to say, well, how fast are we driving this gigantic government?
Actually, Charles, I know how Elijah Cummings amassed the wealth.
How?
I think he licensed his image to Disney for the Baby Yoda.
Yeah. I mean, all the stuff about, person after person in inner city after inner city will talk smack about, places falling down, this problem, that problem. And then you point out, well, excuse me, haven't you been representing Baltimore for 20 years? I mean, what have you done personally to try to solve any of these problems? And so when I see somebody like a Marsha Blackburn not only come out and get involved in politics and keep, it's Klacik, I think.
Oh.
K-L-A. There you go.
Yeah.
C-I-K-L. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, she's impressive. I mean, not only for her gumption and just the fact that this is a person who's in a city who's like, hey, wait a minute, I'm sick of this. And she's like standing up to all these ads here. I mean, hopefully, what Laura is doing, what this Kim Klacik what Kim Klacik is doing, hopefully this will inspire. I mean, these are young women who are hopefully role models to other young women and men who can, instead of just sitting and watching on TV or participating in a riot, I'm all for this method, not burning it down, getting inside there and trying to cut out the rot.
Exactly. So I'm also very pleased, switching topics a little bit, I'm very pleased over the recent visit to Kenosha by President Trump and Attorney General Barr and others, where it was revealed that the Attorney General revealed that, in fact, the question of who these organizations are they in fact organizations, who's funding these organizations, is something that is and has been under study. And, we got onto this early on just because of all the work you and I have done together. We know exactly where to look to figure out, is, Antifa a legitimate organization? Of course not. Is Black Lives Matter, are the various entities legitimate organizations? The answer is, of course not. Quite interesting to see the attitude taken by Barr and Trump out there in Kenosha. Quite saddening to see these places destroyed.
Wrecked, yeah.
Why does it make sense anywhere, if you're upset about something, to burn it down? How does that help anybody? and
especially without a plan to rebuild it afterwards. They have the burn it down plan. They don't have the rebuild it plan.
right now, and to that end, I don't know how recently you've looked at Mini AOC's Twitter feed, but
No, I haven't seen it.
It is really good. I mean, whoever's behind this Mini AOC,
It's got to be her parents,
it's
right?
hysterical, and she follows me, and I follow her, and
Oh man, we should get Mini AOC to be a
we could
guest.
try, but she's one of her
too
recent videos. She's emulating AOC, and she posed the question, "Oh my God, how do you spell? Oh my God."
There she is, Mini AOC on Twitter.
She got 200,000 followers.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I mean, I guess she can't go to school or anything like that. I'm glad she's shown without a mask. Newport Beach.
Yeah, she's a spitting image of her. Look at that.
She really does look a lot like her. I mean, the lipstick and everything.
Look at this. Just before you go too quickly through it, up a little bit, you'll see something. Did you know that the China virus didn't show up at the VMAs because it didn't want to catch anything from the attendees? I mean, she's got some real talent.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder, it's got to be the parents writing these witticisms. I mean, the girl looks like she's 5 or 6.
She's probably 9 or something.
Now, Charles, you were just talking about where these various groups come from. Larry Nichols brought this to someone who was watching, and Larry knows Ed Klein and worked with him in the early days of reporting on the Clintons. What about this? All-out war, the plot to destroy Trump. Apparently, Klein reveals that an FBI investigation found that Antifa members were training with ISIS and Al-Qaeda in Syria.
It wouldn't shock me. I mean, I think based on what I've seen so far, I mean, we've been at this now for several years, and I started on this a while before that, but nonetheless, we see what happens when the government wants to go after somebody like Roger Stone or Jerry Corsi or Paul Manafort.
How about Michael Flynn?
Or Michael Flynn. How aggressive they can be, how intrusive they can be, how in theory thorough they can be. But when it comes to exposing the largest set of charity frauds ever attempted and the largest network, global network, frankly, of public corruption, money laundering, and other crimes, it's like, we don't want to look at that, because I think the suspicion is because we've been centrally involved in it. I think that when you watch these cop shows and stuff and you realize that a premise of many of them is that the internal affairs guys who are supposed to get the bad cops are themselves dirty. And so their job is to make sure that you don't find out how dirty they are. And when we look, frankly, at this, I would like, actually, Jason, if we could pull up into Google the FBI vault on William J. Clinton Foundation. There you go. All right. Now, if we look at this, it says, the initial release consists of material from the FBI files related to the William J. Clinton Foundation, a nonprofit 501c3 organization. This summary, I don't know when it was released, but the investigation ended in 2005. The name of the Clinton Foundation at that point in time was the uppercase William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. Now, this is a team that studied this thing for 4 years and couldn't, in the first day on the job at Dillon Read, when I was 24 years old, the guys sat me down and said, we want you to make sure that you're really precise. We're going to give you an exercise. We want you to tell us what the real name of CIT Financial Corporation is. And they're like, well, are you kidding me? I said, no, go and prove to us what the real name is. And the way you do that is, the way they did it, is they would go and get a document called the 10K, which is the annual report of an entity, and you look at that, and in front of it, it says legal name of the company. You read that off, and you make sure that, right? How could the Federal Bureau of Investigation, with Comey leading the charge from the DOJ, first as the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District, and then as the Deputy Attorney General of the United States, and Mueller running the FBI from September 4th, 2001, how could they not figure out that an entity that was only supposed to do work in Little Rock and had been operating in New York starting in 1998 and had solicited all kinds of money, including from Denise Rich, Mark Rich's first wife, and other suspect people while Bill was president, while Hillary was running for Senate for the first time. How could the vaunted FBI not know that the Clinton Foundation was a massive fraud? They would have checked in the file and said, all right, hey, Rat Rodenstein could have looked and said from the fraud division in the Department of Justice that he was overlooking or overseeing, or whatever the right phrase is. He could have asked a simple question. Could you please, for this entity, produce articles of incorporation that were adopted by trustees independent of the law firms that incorporated the entity? There's nothing. Could you show me some bylaws, actually, that were adopted? When were the bylaws adopted for this entity? Oh, they were adopted 60 days after the thing was incorporated. They were adopted before the thing had an employer identification number, after all kinds of significant things happened in 1997, as the Monica Lewinsky scandal was coming to light and people were finding jobs for her right around this time. These guys couldn't see that. If we pull this part one up.
Because if it was the first day of training at FBI school, I'm sure when they asked that question, it was like, excuse me, I understood there would be pizza.
No, it's like first day of training is like, all right, are you married? Okay. How many mistresses do you want?
Right.
Here are the burner phones. If you're going to have more than one mistress, make sure that you have at least 6 burner phones.
Only text from this phone.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy. So if we go into the PDF of this, because it'll be faster.
Yeah, how do we get to that again? From
a little bit further down the page, you'll see. A little bit. Yeah, right there. There we go. Yeah. So if we go to page 65, and you'll see there's a hell of a lot of stuff, activities were going on. If we just stop randomly at any date. Here's something that happened on February 22nd. So a grand jury was convened by March 20th, 2001. It was uploaded. The memo was dictated on March 9th, 2001. If you now go a little bit more slowly through this, you'll see, for the readers who have time, you can see that a lot of things were going on. Here's something March 5th, 2001. The Clinton Foundation was being investigated. How do we know that? Go to page 65. It's the first time there's a summary, and you can see, yeah. Is that 65? No. I can't see page numbers anywhere.
Yeah,
43. Yeah, go to 65. All right, there you go. Yeah. This is the request. February 15th, 2001, all right? This is a criminal division, New York, white-collar branch, Squad C-14, approved by this Robert J. Cordier, who I think has passed away. Investigation is into William J. Clinton. It's also, we find out later, into Hillary Clinton.
Huh. Why is she redacted and him not?
Well, because she was a sitting senator who might run for president. I think they probably wanted to. So this is a request to open the preliminary investigation. Talks about how Bill Clinton had granted a pardon, right?
Who's this guy?
Pincus Green is Mark Rich's partner. And then if you go to the next page, public records also indicate that, I think it's Denise Rich, contributed approximately, I think the number is $1 million, to lowercase the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation, a foundation to support the Clinton Library. Now, Denise Rich lived in New York. She lived many places, but she was being solicited in New York, okay? And this is something that was open. This is a memo from February 2001. Now, I don't think we had a chance to show the New York registration before, or did we do that?
I don't remember.
So if we go now into Google again, and we look at NYSAG, charity search.
The New York State Bureau.
NYS charity search, I guess.
Sorry.
It's okay.
There it is.
Yeah, and then we punch in 31-158-0204. There you go. And hit search.
Yep.
Share, got it, yeah. Hit search, up will come in a second. There you go, Bill, Hillary, and Chelsea Clinton Foundation. And we look at the summary slowly, if we go down a little bit the page. Notice here, there was a registration statement for the charitable organization on June 24th, 1998. Now, that's the only document in
Can't
here
link it.
that you can't get. So I got it.
How'd you get it?
By asking for it. But they have it, but they've
Who
purposed
unlinked it?
somebody in the charity bureau.
How can they do that?
It's like I made a formal request and I got it.
No, but how can they unlink it like
well,
that?
because it's extremely germane, right? They registered on June 24th, 1998 in New York. The registration requirement is that you've got to file a conformed copy of your Articles of Incorporation, a conformed copy of your bylaws, and you've got to file a copy of your most recent financial information. And they were required, the Clinton Foundation, to put together a 990, an annual report for the period October 23, 1997 to December 31st, 1997. And they didn't do that. They've never done it. And they filed a false and materially misleading registration statement to solicit in New York. As you may know, if you're going to solicit more than $25,000 in New York, before you ask for the money, you have got to fill out this registration statement.
Letitia James just said any charity.
Right.
She did not include any caveats or qualifying statements about the dollar amount. Right. She said you're soliciting money in New York. No charity may do that without first registering.
So we know from newspaper accounts and books and whatever that Bill Clinton was very actively involved soliciting money personally. He went to La Grenouille, I think, the fancy French restaurant for either lunch or dinner or whatever, and he would say, this is a person who could say that he was not having sexual relations with a woman, but she might have been having sexual relations with him or something.
He's just laying there.
I mean, so
I wasn't really trying.
Right? I didn't care. But this is a guy who could say that, equivocate and then lie in that way. You can imagine that he would say, "Well, I wasn't soliciting exactly. I was just laying out my dreams, for the foundation that cost a lot of money.
Money started flowing in.
It wasn't a solicitation per se."
But wait, Charles, something's still unclear. So this is the New York State Bureau of Charities, and they control the website, obviously.
Right.
So someone's helping the Clintons. Why is it not a hot link?
Well, the person who's helping the Clintons, we'll get to that in a second.
Okay.
But is Andrew Cuomo, and before that, and is Kamiki Gibson. We'll get to that in some considerable length. But so you see, they do register. What they said they were going to do on June 24th, 1998 in New York is very material. Did they say at that moment in time they were going to fly around the world bringing down the cost of HIV/AIDS drugs? No, they didn't. They said specifically they were only going to do work in Little Rock, which is why they don't want you to see that now. So they get around to registering a second time on May 12th, 2009. If we hit that form, this one, that is really interesting. You see, this is signed. I can't tell the date on the top one. Is that May 8th, 2009?
Yeah. This
Bruce Lindsay, but the handwriting is
like a Disney 8 or something.
Or 9, maybe. Look, is that?
This is round, and it's the bottom. I mean, who makes an 8 like that?
Yeah,
here's a 9 from this person, so that looks different.
Yeah, but this is definitely the same handwriting. Whoever wrote this and this is the same.
But why are
the
they
dates
using different 8s,
people.
different 9s?
Well, let's look at these signatures, which are over here. That Kessel looks to me as the guy who wrote this and this, and the May 8th. So by deduction, perhaps Bruce Lindsay dated it, whatever date that is. Okay, but this is what's called, at the very top of it, you see, this is called the amended registration statement, okay? And it's for an entity they say is called William J. Clinton Foundation. Well, they had never amended validly their Articles of Incorporation at any time, so that's not really technically the legal name of the entity. Then it says mailing address, 610 President Clinton Avenue. That wasn't the mailing address, of course. That was not the mailing address in May 12th, 2009.
Did President Clinton Avenue even exist?
Yes, it does, but the correct address was 1200 President Clinton Avenue. Keep going down the page. These people are swearing under penalties of perjury that this is all true and correct in accordance with the laws of the state of New York, applicable to this statement. Go down the page, the next page, and it asks some questions. When were you incorporated? 10/23/97. Okay, so you had to file, if you're incorporated then, and you had the activities that they had in 97, you absolutely had to file a 990. The other chapters, branches, and affiliates of your organization, all they say are 2 William J. Clinton offices. One at the Harlem office, which was not previously registered. The other, the New York office. There's no Clinton Global Initiative here. There's no Clinton Health Access Initiative or Clinton HIV/AIDS Initiative or Alliance for a Healthier Generation, or on and on and on. All of which were supposed to have been registered in New York, in each county, if they're fictitious names, in each county where they were being used in New York. Okay, so then you keep going down the page.
They don't care that Harlem is also New York City?
You see the people involved with this. Skip Rutherford is a political hack. Cheryl Mills is worse than that, also a political hack. Terry McAuliffe is a definition of a political hack. Stephanie Street, I'm not sure exactly what her background is. Bruce Lindsay is a political hack. And Andrew Kessel is the most incompetent chief financial officer ever to be involved with a nonprofit that I'm aware of.
But just quick question, Charles. I don't mean to go in reverse, but this 1301 6th Avenue, isn't that Teneo?
Teneo, I'm not sure, had been formed
It's
by
on
that point.
55th and 6th.
I don't know, Jason. Teneo kind of got started in 2009. I'm not sure where it was located at that point. So now look down here. Other names and registration numbers. List all other names used by your organization, including any prior names. It should have been the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. It should be the William J. Clinton Foundation. And it should be Alliance for a Healthier Generation. All the names I was talking about before. They just give the one. Okay?
Yep.
And they keep going down. All right, look at this one. Date organization began doing each of the following in New York State. Conducting activity. August 10th, 2001. Well, if you only started August 10th, 2001, what was the FBI doing
Investigating
in February of 2001? And look at that FBI vault and the number of interchanges and the number of missing pages. And if we had a real FBI director, you go back into that vault and you say, I want to know, I bet you, it being Clinton land, that the file pertaining to the William J. Clinton Foundation investigation 2001 to 5 is not the whole file. It's not only there's some are redacted, some have been bleach pitted and burned, and and somebody has, on the other hand, counterparties have documents that have been destroyed in the Clinton Foundation files. For example, donors probably have correspondence files. They were solicited, they gave money, maybe they got an agreement signed. If you're going to take my money, I'm making this up now. If you're going to take my money, Fred Eichner might have said out of Chicago, you're going to take my money for China, you make me these representations that you are allowed to do this work, that you're legitimately registered in China, that the drugs you provided, HIV/AIDS drugs, will be tested properly. Those type of things should have been in the file somewhere. And of course, it's like, So obviously this is a lie. This is May 12th, 2009. And they say they started maintaining assets November 21, 2006. We have abundant evidence of money going to Harlem well before the 21st of November, 2006. George Soros' foundation in 2004 in New York, one of them, sent $1 million to a bank account in New York for the Clinton Foundation HIV/AIDS initiative. In 2005, Bill Gates sent money.
Ooh.
His foundation did it. We have long lists, and the FBI has long lists. And here they allow, on May 12th, 2009, and remember who's president then, right? Barack Obama. They allow this lie, this obvious lie.
President.
Right. And here, soliciting contributions, including from residents, foundations, corporations, government. They say they only started doing that January 15th, 2002. This is obviously a lie. And then you describe the purposes of your organization: to endow the Clinton Presidential Center and Park in Arkansas, and to continue the work of the Clinton presidency. God forbid, no, please, no.
Yeah.
You're too anxious. There are too many women around here that you
But isn't that just the wrong thing to even think, that you're no longer president, you're continuing?
Right.
That's what Obama's doing now, too. He's continuing his presidency.
That's right, yeah.
You're fired. You're out, dude.
Yeah, well, I'd like to issue my own currency, whatever.
Right.
I mean, so you look at this form. So then we hit to think about this drama, we have a foundation, a corruption ring, a fraud ring that just seemingly cannot be stopped, right? Donald Trump wins the election in 2016. That doesn't stop Hillary and Bill and the resistance. Mm-hmm. And it seems that they have a two-track approach. There's a national approach, and then there's get them in New York if you can't get them nationally, right? Leading the get them in New York approach is Tish James. Before this, it was Eric Schneiderman, preceding, right? And if we go back into New York politics and to the Clinton arrangements, who is somebody who has been a lackey for the Clintons since day one? Andrew Cuomo. When he was in there at HUD, things went amok. The credit crisis of 2007-8, I would pin on Andrew Cuomo and Bill Clinton.
Really?
Absolutely. The changes they made, liberalizing the ways in which securities were issued to finance suspect mortgages, both personal and otherwise. And from January 1st, 2007 through December 31st, 2010, who was the Attorney General of the state of New York? None other than Cuomo, right? So
Charles, in the professional world, if you got a mixed score, would you anticipate moving up?
I think if you're a Democrat, yeah, mixed.
But I mean,
you don't want to be too
world.
Smart, right? You got to be manipulated. You want to resonate.
I mean, in my industries, if you're not constantly excelling, it's like, oh,
yeah, everywhere
that guy
in the real
got
world.
Demoted to the texture department.
Yeah, exactly. Everywhere. Yeah. So let's go in. If we go into Google again and we punch Kumiki Gibson and Zero Hedge. And we get to the memo, and I think it's page 4 of this memo.
But that's Lindsay again.
Exactly. This thing came out right before the election, this story, the 6th of November 2016 in the morning.
Right.
But if we get to the memo, which is a little bit further down here, you'll see it. You should be able to pull it out further down. Here, to the link if you can do it. Or page 4, actually, if you can do page 4.
I think I have to pay for this thing.
No.
To download. This windowed interface.
There you go. I think you could move down this page a little bit.
Oof, these ads.
No. But in essence, this person, this memo, which is dated the 10th of November 2008, so before May 12th, when Bruce Lindsay filed a new registration with Andrew Kessel, this memo admits, Kumiki Gibson writes it, and the memo admits that the Clinton Foundation is not in compliance with law, including in New York State. She writes this on November 10th, 2008, before Lindsay and Kessel filed the amended registration statement. Now, New York State law does not say if you're the former president of the United States and you're trying to steal as much money as you can through a fake set of charities, you don't have to comply with the law.
It doesn't?
It doesn't have an exception for failed presidential candidates.
That's surprising to me.
Or secretaries of state at the time, or people who were just, had just finished hobnobbing with her husband, or her husband hobnobbing in Beijing, getting that Beijing duck at the famous restaurant over there in Hong Kong. Yeah, Listen Fat, that restaurant.
Oh.
So, November 10th, she writes this memo saying the Clinton Foundation is in deep shit, basically, and suggesting that it be completely reorganized to bring it back into compliance with the law. And, by the way, I happen to have some free time. I'm a lawyer. Maybe I could do
Right. So, but she's working for them, right?
Yeah,
like a compliance kind of
But
thing.
she's a lawyer, admitted to the bar, and she's gone in, she's found criminal activity. And instead of saying...
Don't they have some obligation to...
I would think you'd have some. I mean, especially given the scale of this. But she's like, what the hell? Barack won. He's already won by the 10th of November. Let's get on the gravy train together. Let's try to cover this shit up. And so that's on November 10th, 2008. Now, let's go back into Google, punch in Kumiki Gibson, and let's punch in 2019 and Andrew Cuomo.
Oh, yeah.
So of all the gin joints in the world, right, on September 3rd, 2019, if you hit that one right there, of all the gin joints in the world, Cuomo goes into the one where Kamiki Gibson is the chief bartender and decides that he is going to name Kamiki Gibson as his general counsel.
Why not?
And paying her with New York State taxpayer funds. This is a woman.
General counsel for his governorship or for himself?
Look, as a counsel to the governor.
Huh.
Okay? So Kamiki Gibson is counsel to the governor. So here's somebody. Andrew Cuomo was the attorney general when this fraud escalated from January 1st, 2007 to December 31st, 2010. Kamiki Gibson was hired by the Clinton Foundation. Whether she did the work for free or not, we don't know. Probably not. To study this on the inside. She sees the criminal behavior. This thing is getting to the boil. Mueller's report's gone nowhere. He testifies before Congress. He does a McAllen faceplant on in the testimony room there. Comes up with zilch, with a nothing burger. And now they need an alternative approach to derail Trump. They could gin up the impeachment, which they do, but they also need to go hard against Trump and anybody else who could be disciplined by New York. So Tish James starts attacking the Trump Foundation, and Andrew Cuomo realizes, holy shit, I better cover my own involvement up, my lack of prosecuting the Clinton Foundation, my lack of disciplining them. Better hire the person who studied the Clinton Foundation from the inside to make sure. Kamiki Gibson. And of course, Maggie Haberman, I'm sure at the New York Times is like, that's how we roll, man. I mean, we're trying to defeat Trump. Orange man bad. Right. This is totally legitimate.
The other thing, Charles, if you're going to gin up an investigation, make sure you order a scotch.
Mm-hmm.
Gin doesn't go with burgers, I don't think.
Yeah.
So what happens now? Does she still work for Cuomo?
As of this moment, she does, but
wow.
Complaints have been filed in New York, including by me, against the Clinton.
They'll get right on that.
Yeah, I'm sure. Oh, that guy. Yeah, all right, let's work on that. But other people have filed complaints and are more aggressive than I am. Actually, go back to that Kamiki Gibson, if you will. Let's look at her. Is that her LinkedIn page?
Oh, yeah. Wow.
What does it say? She has only 170 connections. That's interesting.
Seems low, right?
If you go down the page a little bit, counsel to the governor. Sounds impressive. Nice resume. She's self-employed attorney for 10, 11 years. Commissioner of Human Rights, and National Urban League, Johns Hopkins University.
What?
And what? A partner at Williams and Connolly. Stop here for a second. 1997 to 2003. That is precisely the time where Williams and Connolly ran gigantic receivables to the Clinton family who could not pay their bills. Where they represented Hillary in 96 to get her dunce cap book, It Takes a Village, to raise a child, which is a preposterous concept to begin with.
You didn't make that child.
I know. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Probably not in her case.
Yeah, well,
or
right.
in Bill's case. But anyway, Williams and Connolly, she's there for 6 years. I call bullshit on whether she was a partner, because I don't.
Oh, yeah.
It's possible that they hired her as a partner, but nonetheless, her partners, David Kendall and others, Nicole Seligman, were very much aware of the Clintons, of the precarious nature of the William J. Clinton Presidential Foundation. And Bob Barnett, you look at this here, she's 3 years an associate, she's a law clerk then for 1 year, 3 years an associate. She works in the Department of Justice for a short period of time. Then she works for Al Gore. And that sends her career into a tailspin probably. And now Williams and Connolly's going to hire her as a partner?
But wait a minute. That's, I guess, where she met the Clintons, working for Al Gore, right?
No. Oh yeah, maybe working for Al Gore, but at Williams and Connolly, most likely she's probably working on the Clinton Foundation matters.
But I mean, don't you think it's something sort of like Al Gore's like, hey, we got a lawyer working for us who's kind of our way of thinking. Right. Why don't we put her over to Williams and Connolly? Like, this is the whole Washington, right. I'll swamp your back, you swamp mine.
That's right. No need to bring the soap. We don't need that stuff.
Right.
But the point is, here's somebody who I would argue is the last person in the world who should be counsel or should be allowed to serve as counsel to the crooked governor, who was a crooked attorney general, who must have known and hid the pervasive fraud and corruption that occurred in New York State from January 1st, 2007 to December 31st, 2010. That is, that is the period where the Clinton Foundation fraud exploded in size. It really exploded after November 18th, 2004. So, I think we have a growing controversy here between Cuomo and Cy Vance, the New York District Attorney, and
They're
Tish
probably
James.
buddies, aren't they?
Oh, sure. They're all trying to get Trumpy.
Right.
And, on the other hand, I think Barr and Durham and others could understand better the exploits of Strzok and, Page and McCabe and others if they dig more deeply into the Clinton Foundation file to understand why Obama, why Holder, why Lynch, why all these people were moving so aggressively against Trump. It's because they have so much to fear if Trump's people really dig in here, watch our videos.
Do an actual investigation.
Yeah, which I think and hope and trust is actually happening.
I think you're right. I think it is. And all this stuff that we're talking about is what's preventing it from going anywhere. Why is Cy Vance embattled, Charles? I thought he's just the DA. What
He looks
battle?
a little bit like a younger version of Prince Charles, doesn't he?
He looks battered.
Yeah.
But what is he embattled about? He does look like Prince Charles.
Yeah. Embattled, gets respite in Weinstein. I don't know. I mean, he's from a dynastic political family. Remember, his father was Secretary of State under Carter, was it?
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. He took a knee, as it were, not going after Weinstein in 2015.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the deal. It seems like their basic poker strategy here is to put whatever crooked dude they like in the office of district attorney and then just start arresting anybody who is doing anything to get them in trouble and not prosecuting anybody who's part of their scam.
Exactly. But I don't think it's working. I mean, it's interesting how we talked a little bit with the senator about this. I have been saying on air with you and for many months that I'm deeply suspicious of these polls that show Biden ahead. I mean, in the construction of the polls, national polls are about as important as sampling, to decide the environmental policy of the United States. Why don't we sample the pre-K class at Episcopal School here on Park Avenue? I mean, off Park Avenue, it just doesn't matter what the national poll says. It's immaterial.
At this point, what difference does it make? I actually heard, Charles, that the polls this year are the most polled. Come on, man, it's 100 years.
That's right.
You know the thing.
Right. Again, it's just, I mean, if you actually can come up with a conclusion that Joe Biden is going to win, you have to go back and say, all right, who the hell was I speaking to? Did I just go to did they just empty out because people are nervous about COVID? They empty out the lunatic wing of some hospital and I just canvass those people? I mean, the performance of this guy, I am not a politician. I have no interest in politics. I'm not being coy about it. This guy is supposed to be, the legendary political dude who's eaten more rubber chickens than anybody else.
What do you mean, eating more rubber chickens?
Well, the rubber chicken dinners you go to, with banquets and stuff like that. This guy's supposed to know the thing, and how to hang out.
Yeah.
And he goes and he says, Donald Trump has killed 180,000 people. And then this is after the survey comes out and says, well, we're not so sure of that COVID is 180,000. And then he gets up there and he mumbles through the thing. And are you going to go to Kenosha? Well, I don't think I should do that. It would be very disruptive to the local people. What Trump is doing is getting in the way of the recovery. And now he's going to Kenosha, apparently.
Good thing he's not flip-flopping.
Yeah. Now on is that Tuesday he's going? Where does it say? Tuesday or Thursday? It says Thursday. Well, meanwhile, Trump, I think yesterday announced he's going to Latrobe, Pennsylvania, which is famous for there are many beer companies in Latrobe. But Pence was in Scranton yesterday. Trump was in Scranton recently. Now he's going back to Latrobe, Pennsylvania.
So they're basically forcing Biden to campaign.
Well, what it's a very clever strategy that I'm no expert on this, but I was talking to people who are tied into this a number of, frankly, many months ago, if not years ago, saying, look, even if you don't think you're going to win in New York and in the expensive media buy states,
You gotta go.
why don't you campaign? Because it's just going to cause them to spend more money protecting a position they should ordinarily win. Now, we go back into the history of New York. I'm not guaranteeing that we're going to win New York, but when you see the numbers that have recently come out saying that blacks, and I think they've been undersampled in the poll, the way they're doing it, I think people are afraid to tell the truth in these polls. The polls are showing 28% black support. And
Don't the Democrats typically say if you can get 20% of the black vote, you win?
Well, I mean, Trump got 8% in 16. So to go, if you're up 20 points or thereabouts, now this is this is not the serious campaigning season. That happens after Labor Day. If you're already in a place where there's a great tweet that Trump tweeted out of some very very smart.
That super worked out black guy for Trump?
Yeah. And two other people with him, saying they're for Trump and explaining why, and then getting into this big fight with somebody who's trying to say, you're an idiot to vote for Trump. And the big guy says, well, give me some facts. What are the facts that support your viewpoint? And the guy can't come up with any. You don't have any facts. And then he goes on this big rant and rave, which is fantastic, saying, it's actually cool to be a conservative Republican.
It's punk rock. He said, being a black conservative in 2020 is the new punk rock.
Yeah.
It's a great quote.
And the more you think about it,
85 million, Charles. That was 30 when we started the show.
Yeah, you should get you should get some kind of a...
I don't think we had anything to do with that, but what's going on here?
This is Trump retweeting something, or is it...
Dan Scavino, St. John's in D.C. Is that...
I don't know.
New that they're lighting it on fire? He tweets so much. I don't know if we'll find this one with the black conservative.
Oh, you'll see it because there's a picture of him. Is he in North Carolina today?
The guy gets around. What about this Drudge Report thing that was saying that Trump denied having a stroke?
Yeah, this is the story right there. That they put out the story that Trump may have had a series of mini strokes, and that Pence was put on notice to get ready to maybe have to stand in for him. And they're saying it's total rubbish, and I believe it probably is total rubbish. You're soon going to see this.
It's like when you see Entenmann's used to say no tropical oils. It's like, who knows what tropical oil is? But I mean, are there rocks in it? Why don't you write no rocks? Yeah,
she is.
I mean, this is terrible. She is a disgrace. She should be prosecuted, fired, tarred and feathered.
She should stay in freaking California.
I mean, I love it that they gave the security footage. I guess she won't be going back to that hair salon.
Which isn't open, by the way. So somehow she managed to get this thing done in a place that was supposed to be closed.
I applaud this hair salon, because if they're losing money from being closed down, releasing that video is a good way to...
Let's see here. Slowly, Glenn Beck. It's right below this, I think. Maybe they took it down, or
no.
It was it.
This is real time, just sort of looking through stuff here. He tweets a lot, I'll tell you that. Well, anyway, I'll keep looking for it while we go to something else. Yeah. I mean,
so I think my point is the polls are I think the real polls, the polls that candidates like or close to the president would have, people who are close to the president would have, show, I think, that Trump is going to win Minnesota, which he did not win in 2016. I don't know yet how it looks in places like in key congressional districts in New York, upstate districts, Staten Island and elsewhere. I don't think we know, at least I don't know yet, how those results are coming in, but I suggest they're probably coming in pretty well for Trump. And so then the question is, beyond the presidential campaign, how are we going to do? Are we going to keep the Senate, or are we going to keep, there it is right there.
Yeah, Jack had it.
And how many? Yeah, 49,000 retweets in this venue.
This is on Jack Cashel's feed, and Chris Steigel has been coming up a lot lately.
Yeah, who is that guy?
I don't know. He's got a radio show that John Cullen referenced the other day. I'll follow him on Twitter, and perhaps we can figure out who he is. But yeah, these guys had a lot of really smart points to raise. The thing that's so important about outspoken black conservatives is that I think there are a lot of black people who share their concerns, but they get so shunned by the black community to support Trump that it's not the kind of thing that the average person would do to go against the grain.
I think that's true if we're talking 2015-16.
Less now.
And Trump is really, I mean, he will go down in history here as a transformative president, much like Ronald Reagan, perhaps more impactful than Ronald Reagan.
Funnier than Reagan, though.
Much funnier. Although Reagan was pretty good in certain moments, but Trump, his ability to go out nonstop at his age, 74,
really
flying
impressive.
around the world, thinking on his feet, not dealing with talking points, dealing with literally all the major problems on the planet at once, is impressive.
It is impressive. He's actually, I think, better when he's off script. He's just off the cuff Trump. That's where you get the goods.
Yeah, he's and he's grown in the job. You like to see that. Seldom do you see people, above the age of 40 really growing in anything. They get to a point where they're set in their ways. You can't teach them anything. And to see, or they won't learn. One of the points in Marsha Blackburn's book, which I very much agree with, is she says you should try to learn something new every day. And that's something that I believe I might even have. I don't know if I have it on my Twitter feed, but that's definitely one of my mottos. If you get another day on the planet, see what you can learn. There's something new to learn.
I'll tell you what, I haven't thought about that, but just doing this show, I'm definitely learning more than something new every day.
Yeah. But why not? It's fun. We're never going to learn everything that you could possibly learn. So there's a lot to learn. And if you haven't learned something in a given day, maybe you're on vacation and that's fine. But
you can still learn something on vacation.
Yeah. But
we did a shoot in Hawaii and somebody presented me with some kind of fruit I had never heard of before.
What part of Hawaii?
It was Waikiki.
So Honolulu.
Where's the black sand beach?
The black sand beach.
Wailea.
Wailea, okay. I've never been there.
Yeah, this guy was the location manager, was working for some farm that was, volcanic. It was like the best tasting piece of fruit ever.
I love also another point. It's kind of unrelated, but you mentioned Hawaii. In my mind, it immediately goes to Obama, Hawaii, and his resume and all that. Yesterday they were trying to attack Donald Trump because his niece or some relative wrote a book and is claiming that Donald Trump paid somebody to take his test scores to get into Wharton, is the allegation. And now Donald Trump attended Wharton 50 freaking years ago, right? Mm-hmm. Now let's think about this for a second, okay? The press is going to pile on, and they were, the Wharton basically, I think provost or whatever you call him at Wharton, basically said, "Fuck you. This is ancient history. We're not going there."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
But in the case of Obama, there are some pretty legitimate questions still outstanding. How did a slacker in high school get into Occidental? How did he transfer to Columbia? What did he do at and after Columbia? What did he say in his applications? What did he say to get into Harvard Law School? Who paid for Harvard Law School? These are a lot of legitimate questions, which if you brought them up, in the run-up to Barack Obama's election and then afterwards, you were gang tackled.
Yeah.
I mean, you were a conspiracy theorist. It's unfair to ask these questions. Now they're going to go and say, well, Donald Trump, we impeached him, but we didn't convict him. We couldn't get him on Russia. He's about to say something about the degree to which the State Department conspired with Ukrainian interests to influence. So we better start attacking that. I mean, it's a bunch of people in the resistance, it strikes me, are people who reject the notion that law applies to them. They have decided that this nation isn't perfect, therefore its laws are imperfect, and they believe they have won the right, even though they don't win any elections that matter, to remake the world in their own image and steal as much money as they can. And they're the noble ones. We're the jerks. We're trying to stop it, but they're the noble ones.
Yeah, I know. It's really ridiculous.
So,
somebody who I was friends with in college posted something on Instagram where it was like, some meme with George Floyd getting stomped on by Chauvin, and he's like, something nasty about Trump, and then he was like, any questions? And I said, yeah, are you aware that Chauvin and Floyd knew each other and worked together? And are you aware that there was $900,000 in counterfeit money? Because he had said something about killing the guy over counterfeiting. And he was like, get off your high horse and blah, blah. It's like, you're the one posting memes and asking if there's any questions. I asked questions you don't seem to know the answer to. Those are questions. Who's on the high horse?
Yeah, exactly. And it's so odd because I was very young in the 50s, in the late 50s and the early 60s. But in that time frame, I recall that it was the people on the left who were saying, you've got to be tolerant of our ideas, no matter how kooky they may be. And things were up for discussion. I mean, that was the idea of getting an education. You would have, the orthodox ideas of old are interesting, but let's introduce some new ideas and let's consider them and take them seriously. That was basically the approach. And that has been replaced with, we will decide, what you should think. We will decide what you should do. We will take away your money. We're going to raise your children.
We're going to bomb you.
Yeah, we're going to bomb you. And you should just STFU. I mean, that's just what you should do. It's not Southern New Hampshire University. It's STFU University. And, I guess I was encouraged to refer to it this way. My first father-in-law's was at this Francis Tavern.
Where? No, that's not Francis Tavern. That's the townhouse where they were making a bomb.
Oh, that's in
blew up and
9th
killed
Street.
the Weather Underground. 9th Street, really?
Oh, that's There was also a bomb.
A townhouse in Greenwich Village.
There was a townhouse in Greenwich Village that blew up. I don't know if.
I should go over there. I wonder where that was.
It's been rebuilt.
Well, of course.
But
I think what's his name? Dustin Hoffman was like living next door or something.
Is that really? So this group took credit. 28 bombings. Give me some credit for that, man. Come on, man.
Jeez.
It's just and this Susan Rosenberg very much involved with all that.
Oh, look at this, Charles.
That's new.
I don't know if it's new, but it's the FBI vault of the Weather Underground.
I need to look through that.
Yes.
Yeah. But this Susan Rosenberg, who's so much involved with raising money, or was very much involved raising money through Thousand Currents for Black Lives Matter organizations that don't technically exist.
Man.
I mean, she writes a book saying that she's very proud of the fact that she went to federal prison and did these bombings. Unrepentant, pardoned by Bill Clinton alongside many other despicable pardons.
Yeah.
At what point does the American population get tired of being Gruberized? But Professor Gruber, who he said, we couldn't tell you the truth about Obamacare because if we told you the truth, you wouldn't want to do it. People like Gruber and Rosenberg and Hillary and Uma Abedin and Cheryl Mills and Terry McAuliffe and Kamala Harris.
I haven't heard too much from her for the past few days.
She's probably, a fish rots from the head. And if you decide to be vice president to, listen fat, people are going to be asking some questions about just how smart and with it you may be.
She was the first of 2 inmates in the high security unit.
Yeah.
In the basement. Damn. You're so bad, we're putting you under the jail. Literally. Wow. How could they let this woman out? It's Clinton.
It's Bill Clinton, exactly.
On the last day.
And she's offered a college position at Hamilton College.
What?
Resistance memoirs, writing identity and change. I mean, I have, actually, now that I see this, I have friends who are on the board of Hamilton. This is outrageous.
But what does this say?
Light and truth. That's
Please.
Yale's motto.
Please. Light, truth, and plagiarism.
That is actually Yale's motto.
Oh, they plagiarized it from Yale.
It must have been a previous member of the Biden family.
Really bad. Liberal. It's in Clinton, New York. Obviously, that's connected.
But, you think about another thing I've noticed, I think you've noticed this too, and it's a little early to have bumper stickers and other signs up for the election, but I have not seen a single Biden sign in Greenwich Village or Chelsea, which are two places where, there might be 3 Republicans and both combined. I mean, or maybe they're more than that, but it's not that many. You would have thought there would be some, hiding with Biden or hiding Biden stickers up. There's nothing. If you're not going to do that, maybe there'd be something for Kamala Harris.
I don't know if there's ever been a worse candidate for president than Joe Biden. That I'm aware
in the
of.
Democrats.
I mean, the guy can't speak a sentence.
Just the person you want. If what you want is a figurehead who's going to hang out in the basement of the White House while you steal as much money as you can.
Charles, the guy literally cannot be the product specialist for ShamWow, and he's trying to run for president. He can't speak a sentence.
Right.
That's a problem.
Ordinarily, typically. I mean, he did promise to release all his cabinet picks. He's going to, right?
Well, he's looking at oak, birch. No.
Teak.
President, yeah. We're not those cabinets. Oh, yeah. No, Jill is handling the kitchen renovation. You mean the cabinets in the garage? Yeah, I got that modular system. I got into garage culture in California. I had a very big garage. You could do a lot of good stuff in the garage, but here, I'm just locked in the box, Charles.
You're lucky. Lots of people are leaving.
I know, and you know what? The weather was a little bad today, so I didn't really go outside. But when I've been going outside, it's just more businesses closing every day.
More businesses closing, people leaving, just residential
lines
people
for
moving.
U-Hauls, moving companies are saturated.
A lot of leases are struck, obviously, to begin at the beginning of a month or before the beginning of a month, and a lot of sudden. Restaurants that were there and are now just completely gone, or businesses that were there just completely gone at street level.
Yeah. I saw one small restaurant has converted itself, I think during pandemic times, to what was it called? It was Craft to Go or something like that. And it's a narrow restaurant that's just now 2 tables outside and beer to go.
Craft beer to go. Still, I mean, unless lease rents have gone way down, the cost of occupying the space is so high, then the degree of difficulty of dealing with D'Crazio and his various regulations. He said, I think yesterday, that in-person dining won't happen again until June of next year.
What?
In restaurant dining.
No restaurant will exist.
Right.
June of next year.
Right. Well, restaurants are for rich people, and they're also talking about curtailing subway service, which is
because it's losing $200 million a day. That's fine. I don't want to go on there anyway. It's just rapists and people defecating.
Right, but the problem with that is that there are large portions of this city that if you shut the subway down,
can't get anywhere.
You can't go from here to there. It's just
And
so people looking at this train wreck are saying, they put Dr. Kevorkian in charge of the state and city, his twin brother. This is an assisted suicide, and there's too many liabilities already.
Governor Kevorkian?
Governor Kevorkian, exactly. And you just have to look at this depending on your age. I suppose if you're 8, you could say, we'll come back in 20 years. But if you're 40 or 60...
Where am I going to spend the rest of my life?
Yeah, I mean, you just make a decision. Your ripcord gets pulled, you go somewhere else, and you're not coming back. In fact, given the aggressive...
flush chain than a ripcord.
I don't think you want to pull a flush chain, but...
Well, Yeah.
So, and you follow Trump's lead. I mean, Trump left New York. He went to Florida.
Yeah.
Not necessarily Florida, but you do leave. And when people start, and I know you've done this yourself, when you're working with a team and you have to guesstimate your revenue and look at your cash flow and stuff like that, you have a pipeline, a marketing pipeline. You look ahead, how many prospects do I have? How many people are talking about an engagement letter or whatever, an order? How close are we to getting the order? What's our history of converting discussions into orders, into cash? You start doing all that work, and you get to a certain scale, and you actually can do a good job of projecting. But when it's like, how many customers do we have? That would be none. How current are we on our expenses? Not at all.
Let's get the actuaries in here and start to figure some of this out.
Let's hire McKinsey. We'll bring in Rajat Gupta. He's out of jail. He used to run McKinsey. We'll get him to do a study.
Speaking of Rajat Gupta, that causes me to think of the Singh brothers and what's going on with them in jail.
I don't know about jail, but they've had a real reversal of fortune. I mean, they sold out of Ranbaxy, I think in 2008, thought they were duped, the Japanese. Japanese who seldom sue you when you're duped, because it's a huge loss of face in Japan to admit that you were duped.
Oh, really?
Nonetheless, went after the Ranbaxy guys, won a judgment, and they then lied about their financial position, and they got involved with another company, Fortis, where they had a similar problem. So this whole Malvinder Singh and his brother are in a heap of trouble.
But it seems like they got arrested in India, and then there was like no reporting on it, and nothing has really happened. Every day there's a lot of stories in the Indian press about more scams.
And I actually remember I first started going to India in 2008, and I remember at that time, Ranbaxy struck me as a company, not doing any deep digging, that at surface level should have been a good company. I mean, it had a long history, it had a big market position in the U.S., but this whole idea of manufacturing counterfeit or bad drugs and selling them into the U.S. market
Seems like a bad business plan.
Right, and so who was involved crafting the Garuda business plan for Ranbaxy? Rajat Gupta.
Ah.
Who may have been involved while she was at McKinsey, one way or another? She might have known of it. Chelsea Clinton. Bill Clinton gets credit. Credit might be the wrong word now, but gets credit for restoring or creating close relations between America and India. It was his presidency. It was in his presidency where that happened. Previously, the United States took the view that we liked Pakistan, not India. And so we had very chilly relations until Bill got involved, till he had a state visit there, and he entertained the Indian leaders in Washington, D.C. In fact, so what he may have done, is that Hillary?
Yeah, well, Chicky Rogue has just asked, didn't Hillary fall down a flight of stairs?
That's impressive.
So now, wait a minute. So Trump sort of casually flips his foot in the way somebody who's perhaps tired might, and suddenly it turns into he's had a stroke. Hillary Clinton is dragged down the stairs like a geriatric, and they don't say anything.
Yeah. Well, they've said a fair amount about this. And later, when we're coming up on the 4th anniversary of the Benghazi concrete swan dive.
Right.
I mean Benghazi, 9/11 ceremony where she was supposed to project strength, which she did by falling flat on her face.
I don't know if she could project a slide presentation at this point.
Right. So it's you remember the Monty Python skit "Bring Out Your Dead"? Yeah. That's what the Democratic Party seems to be doing now.
They run them for president. No, it's like the parrot. It's like, excuse me, Kamala Harris, your presidential running mate is dead. No, he's not. He's resting. Looks rather dead.
Indeed, Jason, indeed. So a real treat to have the senator on.
Yeah.
And make sure to send her a copy to the link. And
absolutely. And I also do want to remind people, Charles, that they should purchase her book and read it. It's the mind of a conservative woman. And, the thing is, she is just one of these people who, she talks about how she started a business, and that's not easy, whether you're a man or a woman. And she's just somebody who makes up her mind to do something and goes and does it.
Right. And she wills herself into success, and against odds. When you read the book, there were several portions of her life where she fought great odds and won. I love to see that in somebody who does it one level, learns from it, another level. I wonder whether she'd probably stay in the Senate as opposed to going to the cabinet, but in the next term. But she's really demonstrated a fantastic career and a huge pleasure to work with. I mean, I didn't spend that much time personally with her, but a lot of time with her senior staff. And God, well organized, gave me confidence that, if there's one person like this in the Senate, maybe there's another. Maybe out of the 100 senators, we might have quite a few good ones. Yeah. No, I think we've got. On the Republican side, I've met Ron Johnson. He's very impressive. And I'm looking for big things out of him soon.
Good. Well, I hope that comes to fruition, Charles. It's been another great episode here. I really like what we've done with the format, having interviews on Wednesdays and documenting the devolution of New York City. I don't like that so much, but it's got to be done. Weather permitting, we'll be doing that again on Sunday. And until then, I hope that people will sponsor Crowdsource the Truth. It's the beginning of the month, and I don't understand this phenomenon, but there's a huge decline at the end of the month, more so on Patreon than Subscribestar. I definitely understand that everybody is feeling the crunch of job losses and all the uncertainty of the pandemic. I've tried to keep the direct-to-viewer sponsorship as low as possible. There are a limited number of $2 per month sponsorships left on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth, but there's no limit on the $2 per month sponsorships on Subscribestar, and people who choose either of those are going to get access to a huge library of sponsor-exclusive content that's growing almost every day. So I hope people will get on there. And Charles, I'll see you on Sunday. Thanks for another great show.
Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.